Oh my gosh, we're back again. Am I original? Yeah. Do I have my ranks done right? Maybe. Alright, welcome back to the third part and final part of the challenge rankings for the whole series of the challenge. Every single season of the main flagship show, I am ranking from 38 all the way up to 1, and in this third part, I will be talking about the top 13 seasons. We're going to go from 13 all the way up to what I rank as the #1 best season of the challenge, and I'm excited about this video, mainly for the fact that I get to just have fun talking about seasons that I love. The category I have of the next 8 seasons called the Excellent 8, and then we get into the top 5, which I think is S-tier seasons. Let's get into the rankings, starting at number 13. The first season that we're talking about in 13th spot in the Excellent 8 is season 17, The Duel 2. The Duel 2 just has a really strong vibe to it. You have this being the only season that's taking place in New Zealand. I think episode 1 of The Duel 2 is probably the most bombastic premiere episodes in all of the challenge's history. It can't even be watched on Paramount Plus. That's how crazy it is, but this is the infamous fight that happens between CT and Adam.
I will smash his head and eat it.
But even after that moment, there is still a ton of moments on this season that is really, really fun. I do have this at the bottom of the Excellent 8 because I think the cast is a little bit weaker compared to the other seasons that I have over it in the Excellent 8. Some of the elimination games are a little bit meh, and I think the rumor / it actually happened of the men all pooling the money together at the end for the finals and deciding just to split it evenly to where the finals really don't matter except for title's sake. As well as on the women's side in the finals, I think that Rachel was by and far the best competitor in that finals. I mean, best competitor overall. But even with saying all of that, I think The Duel 2 is a spectacular season. I really do enjoy the vibe. I really do enjoy the cast of characters. I do enjoy the challenges and the elimination matchups and how far players had gone. I mean, I was rooting so hard for DM to make it very far on that season, and she barely just missed out on making those finals. The major thing I really cringe at on this season is Brad and Tori fighting all the time, and Tori talking about giving Brad the ring back, which was like so eye roll. All right, let's see what's ranked at number 12. We have season 8, The Inferno. I talked about in a previous part that season 7, The Gauntlet, turned out to be the framework, turned out to be the blueprint, the formula that made the challenge the challenge. I don't think anybody expected the very next season for that formula to be taken and absolutely enhanced. Season 8 Inferno has one of the best casts ever assembled. It takes the heavy hitters of the real world and the road rules, the biggest personalities, the biggest competitors, put them all together, and it was incredible. This is CT's first season. You have great rivalries between Coral and Julie. Julie versus Veronica. Veronica versus Katie. You have wonderful love matchups between The Miz and Kendall, which turned very sour very quickly. Darrell and Leah. Coral and Abram. I mean, if you just look at this cast and what they were able to put together, this was harmony in sync. I think what lands season 8 at number 12 for me is that some of the daily challenges and some of the eliminations were pretty meh. I just really love The Inferno. A single-digit season in its early years, and for it to have peaked at number 12 on the list for me is actually incredible, and I even kind of contemplated it putting up higher, but for now, I think that it is right in the place for number 12. All right, I think a lot of people are going to think that I am nuts for having Battle of the Bloodlines up at number 11. Granted, I understand the criticisms of Battle of the Bloodlines. This one was a little bit ridiculous with having everybody split into 2 teams, but not thinking about the format split, because I actually think that the format split works with how the teams were put together on that season. And what you're left with is an incredible array of players and this house division where you have Bananas on one side, Cara Maria on the other side, and they are playing this tug of war to see who will come out on top. I mean, you think about the hookups on this season, you think of the fights that happened on this season. I mean, Jenna versus her cousin in the bakery debate.
Only is back with her because his ex-girlfriend has short hair.
is iconic. This is where we're introduced to the bananas cam. We have Kara and Thomas in the back of the bus. Then you have Abram coming into the game out of nowhere, and then that whole stuff with Vince telling Abram about Kara and Thomas, and then Kara and Abram having their difficulties and going through the difficulties within the house. Thomas gets eliminated by Abram and Mike, and you finally have this volcano of rivalry between Bananas and Cara Maria bubbling up to the surface that ultimately leads to them going head-to-head in an elimination where Cara and her cousin Jamie defeat Bananas and his cousin Vince. You have CT and Zach coming in as mercenaries, taking on Abram's brother and cousin Jamie. You also have CT making another appearance, this time alongside DM's sister, to do a demonstration of that daily challenge. I mean, every time I watch it, tears well up in my eyes. Also, the trivia challenge had a lot of stupid answers to it. And to me, after rewatching this season and rewatching the finals and rewatching the dailies and the elimination battles, and going over all of the significant moments that kind of make the season, I felt my heart just like kind of go towards Battle of the Bloodlines. And to me, I understand where the problems and the flaws for it is, and that's what ultimately kept it out of the top 10. But after rewatching it, I kind of found myself being like, dang, this is actually a pretty decent season. I'm excited to talk about the top 10 seasons. So let's jump into it, starting with number 10. So at number 10, I have season 26, Battle of the Exes 2. This season had a lot of stuff going for it. The cast is really incredible. This is the introduction to Are You the One, which I think is a very pivotal moment in the challenge's construction and history. You had a lot of great couples on this season. I mean, the first 3 episodes I will always start to tear up on because of everything that happens with DM. Going through that season, you had this power dynamic early along with Wes and Teresa versus Bananas and Nany. They actually get Bananas and Nany out of the game, and then Wes gets ultimately screwed on the Battle of the Exile twist. Now, I will say, I do like this redemption house in the way that it was constructed, where Bananas and Nany, when they were in there, had to go up against everybody who came in and had to send each and every person home on their way to looking for redemption to get back into the game, where they finally won a not so fast against Zach and John A. The problem is, I wish we would have seen it. It feels really weird that we never get to see much of anything from the Battle of the Exile. I think it was a web exclusive when they were trying to get everybody to go onto MTV.com at a certain point. It's actually a really compelling season. It is messy. It has a lot of drama to it. It's so entertaining. The colors, the daily challenge, the elimination matchups were really incredible. Wes and Teresa do get very screwed because they played almost a flawless game. Then we get to the final daily challenge where you have Sarah and Jordan sending in Bananas and Nany into the final elimination against Leroy and Teresa. You have Leroy winning so many eliminations, twice against Bananas, once against Wes on this season alone. And the finals were really, really difficult. This is where Sarah and Jordan just show how strong of a team they are in these finals and absolutely stomp out the competition. I just really enjoyed Battle of the Exes 2 for what it was. Number 9 is Season 10, Inferno 2, which is just incredible. Seldom do sequels pass the original, but with Inferno 2, it's just superior to Inferno 1. Even though Inferno 1 is only at number 12 and Inferno 2 is only 4 spots ahead of it, Inferno 2 is great. I love this cast. The season was really great. The badasses were absolutely destroying the good guys, but it was the ultimate power of the good guys at the end of the day between Jamie Chung, Darrell, Landon, and The Miz. I mean, talk about a freaking incredible lineup that is. And the 4 of them were able to beat all of the badasses. I mean, the only good guy to go into elimination and come out was Landon at the end of the day. He went in twice, came back out. Kind of like what I said with Inferno 1, some of the eliminations and some of the daily challenges kind of falter a little bit. I love the Inferno 2. I think it deserves a lot of respect, and to me, it just had everything. It was like the full package, in my opinion. But because of some of the eliminations and some of the overpowering from some of the teams, I could only rank it as high as number 9, but cracking into the top 10 is very impressive in my opinion. Now let's go on to who would I have ranked at number 8. Fresh meat is iconic. I mean, it led to some fantastic legends on the show. I mean, even the rookies that were put on this season. But think about Kenny, think about Evan, think about Evelyn, Big Easy. You also have DM. I mean, there's a ton of names on this season that would go on to become legends. Think of some of the other players on the veteran sides and the rookie side, because you have Wes, this was his first season. You have Darrell, who won with Aviv. You have Derek and DM. You have Theo, Vaughn, and Shonda. Evan and Coral. But ultimately it leads this season being only ranked up number 8 is because of the Exiles. I'm not a huge fan of the Exiles. They were poorly put together. They were not very well thought out, to where when Wes and Casey are thrown in over and over and over again, they find out that the secret is just run the course as quickly as possible. Don't even try the puzzles. Also with these eliminations / exiles is what's the purpose of carrying your luggage weight along the course with you? What does that have to do with anything? Fresh meat is incredible. It is iconic. And to me, it deserves to be right here where I have it at number 8. But now let's get into number 7. All right. We have season 13, The Duel. This is a huge point of the show. You can think of so many iconic moments from this season. At the top of the list is the romance that starts up between DM and CT. Just thinking of DM and the Mud Daily Challenge ring toss, I mean, that moment makes me shed a tear every single time. Then it is undercut by another challenge moment of Tina trying to punch Beth. Then you have a classic elimination introduced on this show called the pole wrestle that is heightened between the matchup of Wes versus Derek. Then that moment where Evan is going into elimination, calls out CT, and is hit with instant regret. The Duel was the first individual season, and to me, it was an instant success. For being experimental on how would a solo season go for the challenge, it was absolutely incredible. I think what keeps it out of the top 5 is the elimination games. There was an elimination game where Beth and CT, who were easily defeating their opponents in that elimination, I think it was called Push Me, and they got absolutely screwed. They could have had weeks, they could have had days to figure out how to not let that happen again, but they did nothing about it. They were just like, whatever. I wish I could put it in the top 5, but some of those daily challenges and a lot of those eliminations just were so underwhelming, and some of them were really poorly put together, to where if it wasn't called pole wrestle, I kind of rolled my eyes at the elimination. But to me, the Duel is super iconic, and I had to put it up super high. So now let's uncover what's at the top of the excellent 8, ranking at number 6, just missing out at the top 5. It's season 19, Fresh Meat 2. It's pretty interesting that I said seldom does sequels ever surpass the original, and in the excellent 8, you have Inferno 2 over Inferno, and then you have Fresh Meat 2 over Fresh Meat. Fresh Meat 2, I think, was incredible, and as I mentioned, the Duel was a pinnacle point as well as Fresh Meat, but Fresh Meat 2, I think, was even bigger in the progression of the show itself. There was this huge divide in the game that really lent itself to being super thrilling to watch. I mean, we talk about how there are no rivalries realistically on the challenge seasons anymore. The alliances are super one-sided and lopsided in the more recent seasons of the challenge. Well, Fresh Meat 2 was a house divided. You have Landon, a player who never really had any alliances in the game playing before then. He decided that he was cool with having alliance, but not just one alliance. He was playing both sides. He was the swing vote. He went over to Wes's side, and then when he was like, Wes is kind of losing me a little bit and losing a little bit of power, and then he turned over to Kenny, and he was able to just hop over to Kenny's side and then make it to the finals and prove to everybody why you do not want to see me in a finals. Not to say that Landon was the underdog, but Kenny and Laura were winning so much of that season, and I think a lot of people discredit or underrate Carly so much. I really love the dynamics of this season and the new additions of this season with the fresh meat side of having Cara, having Laurel, having Teresa, and Brandon Nelson. I think that it's a shame that more of the fresh meat to fresh meat side didn't get more chances on further seasons. I'm just saying that I think Fresh Meat 2, when watching it, is such an eye-opening season. It is such a breath of fresh air from the past few seasons where it's just friendship talk, friendship talk, friendship talk, and you have players actually playing the game. You have this contention with one another. The only thing that keeps it out from being in the S tier and in the top 5 is realistically the Exiles, but everything about Fresh Me 2 is incredible. Let's move on to what I deem the Fantastic 5, the top 5 seasons of the challenge, and we're gonna start with number 5. That's right, this is the Fantastic 5, not to be confused with the Fantastic 4, but here we go. These are what I would deem the top 5 seasons of the challenge. These are nearly perfect seasons that encapsulates the show perfectly from a multitude of ways. These are the most entertaining. These are the most drama-filled. These seasons are the challenge in its core and in its being. And honestly, these are the seasons that I would suggest to anybody who is new to the show to watch to get them hooked. I have on here season 24, Rivals 2. Now this one I'm a little bit on the edge with because I had been going back and forth for weeks whether to put Fresh Meat 2 or Rivals 2 in the 5th spot. Some of the eliminations are a little bit weaker in my opinion, but when I was thinking about the Exiles versus the eliminations of this season, thinking about the teams that were put together, some teams have really high contention with each other. Some teams are kind of just put together just to have the people on the season, and I think that adds to why this is only at number 5 for me. But Rivals 2 is really, really solid. I love the fights that people get into. I love the mess. I love the drama. I love the makeouts. I love the rivalries that begin from this season. You have X's on this season as well between Knight and Jemmy. You also have CT and DM, Emily and Paula being paired up together and absolutely being a juggernaut of a duo. You have Wes and CT also walking through this season unscathed. You have Frank and Johnny who never go see an elimination. You have the rookie sensations of Heather Cook, Jordan, and Marlon being able to make it to the finals. And then you have one of the most grueling finals in challenge history, in my opinion, with Nightmare Island. Boil it down to what its essential core is, and I just think that its essence is the challenge, and I love it. And also the iconic moments of Wes yelling at Banana saying that he has a monster truck and a BMW and 30 companies.
I have a BMW, a Porsche, a monster truck, a house, and 30 companies.
I think I made the right decision in putting Rivals 2 in my top 5. Let's move on to, boom, number 4. And at number 4, I have Battle of the Exes Season 22. Looking at this cast, these pairings and these exes are some of the most major relationship couples that have ever graced the show. I mean, Mark and Robin go all the way back to the early seasons of the show in Season 9. Then you have DM and CT in the early teens. Then you have the more recent couples of Abram and Cara, who would play out on an on-again, off-again relationship throughout the show's history. You have Johnny and Camilla, who got hooked up in Season 20. You have Emily and Ty, who were from their own real-world season. Anissa and Rachel from way back in the day. I mean, this season told an amazing story through just the pairings that they were able to put together. The daily challenges were fun to watch. It was very colorful. Yes, they were kind of gimmicky, but they were still challenging nonetheless. You had a great variance in the eliminations. Granted, they did the same handful over and over and over again, but none of them seemed like over-the-toply dumb, and I felt like this season was incredible. There was some questionable strategies that happened towards the end of the season. You have the finals, which were iconic. You have the Race to the Altar daily challenge, which was... The casting alone makes this a top 5 season. And now let's get into the top 3. At number 3... So at number 3, I have Season 33, War of the Worlds 1. It's definitely my favorite seasons of the 30s, and to me, It was really, really well done. I mean, it is a fresh meat season in a way that it wasn't taking just average people off the street and getting them onto the challenge, but it was a fresh meat as that half of the cast were completely new players, but they were coming from other reality shows, which I think is a smarter way of guaranteeing what personalities you're getting from people. I thought that the casting department did a fantastic job. They had immunity for teams that would win an elimination to where the next episode they couldn't just be targeted and thrown in right away, which I was thinking, why don't we have the immunity mask or idol to give to players? Because that would greatly help players not be sent in over and over and over again. You have a fantastic cast full of a lot of champions, and then you have a twist where so many champions leave so early in the game, and it opens up the door for new players to get their personalities, to get us accustomed to these new players, which there was a ton of new players. I mean, you have so many great personalities on this season. You have so many moments. I mean, Bear's cousin, this is the first season where Kyle, Paulie, and Cara had that rivalry with each other. You had Amanda versus Cara and Johnny Bananas, where it seemed like Johnny and Cara were kind of on good terms for a little while. This was Wes and Nani's return after not being on the show for quite a while after Rivals 3, I believe. And then you have the finals, which is, I would say, the hardest finals in the challenge's history, but I don't think it is the best season overall, especially with like some retrospect, looking back on some of these players that have come back or have been now since banned. I think that it is solid at number 3, and I don't see it moving anytime soon. So for now, at number 3, I have season 33, War of the World, but it is an incredible season. I love rewatching it. But now, let's go on to what I have ranked at number 2. I have season 25, Free Agents. This season has been mentioned by a lot of fans and the fandom as being the number 1 best challenge season. Free Agents is damn near perfect. I love how this season's format went, with it being a solo season, but every daily challenge changing from either a team, pair, or solo match. I love the addition of the kill card. The numbers have officially taken over the game and make seasons very predictable. At least the kill card was a random component that everybody could get behind and add this sense of, I can't save all of my friends if they don't perform in the daily challenge. Speaking of the daily challenges, all of them are fantastic. The trivia challenge is one of the best trivia challenges. You have the hot dog one where they're trying to get to the bun, which is weird and disgusting, but really, really fun to watch. The finals are incredible. The storylines that come from this season is great. You have a lot of hookups. You have a lot of fights. I mean, the Cara and Laurel relationship and friendship and breakdown of friendship is one of the biggest and best storylines. Bananas and Laurel getting the win. Johnny getting his 5th win, claiming the spot of the challenger with the most finals wins in challenge history at 5 at that time. Laurel getting her first challenge championship after getting 2nd place multiple times, always feeling like the bridesmaid, never the bride. She had to go through Cara, she had to go through Anissa, she had to go through Teresa, and she did every single point and still only won by 9 minutes. I think Free Agents is always a fun season to rewatch, and it has everything. It has everything you ask for in a challenge season. One of the best houses in challenge history, as well as the storylines, the drama, the makeouts, everything. Just everything about Free Agents is nearly perfect. The only reason I have it at number 2 is because of what I have ranked at number 1 and what it meant for the show as a whole, having this momentous occasion happening on the show, and kind of like what I was talking with Battle of the Exes. So let's just get into it. I'm just going to reveal what I have ranked at number 1, which everybody knows that it is Season 21 Rivals. If I was talking about how the casting alone for Battle of the Exes make it to get into the top 5, and how the pairings tell a story over the challenge's history in general, and how everything plays out in a certain specific way is iconic to the show and a huge pivotal moment in the show's history. I mean, Rivals is stacked up just that way too. I mean, you have Johnny and Tyler Duckworth, you have Paula and Evelyn, you have Cara and Laurel, you have CT and Adam, Kenny and Wes. Evan and Nehemiah, Jasmine and John A. I could go on and on. These pairings have animosity towards each other that grew from either one season, 2 seasons, multiple years in the making, leading up to this momentous occasion, this iconic occasion of rivals. I mean, just think of CT and Adam's rivalry. It started all the way back on their real world season, leading into multiple seasons. Season 15, it hits ahead. Season 17, CT hits Adam's head, literally. Cara and Laurel stemming back from season 19, also season 20. You have Kenny and Wes. Think of just the rival pairings in Rivals 2 or Rivals 3 and how some of those were just like kind of made up. I mean, Frank and Johnny weren't even on a challenge season together. They had like a Twitter fight with each other. And these rivalries turned out to either stay rivalries or they led to even bigger rivalries that happened in Rivals 2. I mean, honestly, there was a fight that happened in the duel between CT and Wes, but because of what happens in Rivals 1 between CT and Wes, where CT yelled at Wes for like 4 hours straight one night, it led to them being paired up on Season 24, Rivals 2. You had massive hookups, you had massive fights. Jen versus Cara, I can't believe that never went anywhere after this season. You have the Paula and Laurel scene that happened.
Fake boobs, you don't have kids, you're ugly, shut the up.
Once they were getting close to the finals were really difficult and really hard. This was the first overnight finals. This was the first location change finals. I mean, this season has really stepped it up in the show's history, and this is where a huge turning point happened. The rival pairings alone makes this a top 3 season, but everything else that was added onto this show that would later on take the trajectory of the show, just thinking about Rivals and what this season meant and the season pairings that happened on this show is wild. And I don't think we'll ever see this culmination of people that legit have animosity against each other, that want to get revenge on each other, actually be paired up with each other. I mean, I think of Final Reckoning and how that was a Rivals 4, and a lot of those matchups were just like whatever. People weren't even like really fighting with each other on those Final Reckoning. I mean, most of the people were cool with each other, and they had to find beef outside of their own pairings because they didn't even really dislike each other. In Rivals, you legit feel everybody's frustrations with each other, and the only way the guys came together was to get CT out of the game. Ooh, I'm just getting like goosebumps thinking about season 21 Rivals, but these are the Fantastic 5, what I deem the S tier of the challenge and the top 5 seasons of the show. Here's my full rankings of the challenge seasons, not just the ones that I talked about today of the top 13. What do you think about my top 5? Do you agree with my top 5? Do you disagree with my top 5? What are your top 5 favorite seasons of all time? What do you think is the top 5 seasons? Let me know down in the comment section below. I'm gonna give a special shout out thank you to everyone who supports me over at patreon.com/angelcakevids. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you. And thank you to everyone who is watching this video up to this point. And I'll be back really soon with more challenge content, more content in general. But until then, peace.